Rimworld, game full of fun, family-safe activities and storytelling. But what if I turned it into a communist commune paradise? With the help of my trusty pal, Joseph Stolfin, I believe we can make this work. Because of course we all know if something doesn't work the first time, you probably just did it wrong and you need to do it again. And so I picked a fitted name for our ideology and chose our values to bring out the best in our workers. And with that, let the 5-year plan begin. Once we had started, I immediately got Joseph Stolfin to begin arming himself with protective gear and guns so that he could establish himself as the dominant in the colony. His whole communism thing's pretty reliant on there being a strong strategic vanguard at the head of the revolution, so of course Joseph Stalin was the obvious candidate, as he is very reliable. And just like in the Amazon forest, we needed wood, so I immediately began deforestation of the nearby terrain. This wood would go into our construction plan to create ourselves a little humble abode which would be the start of our great commune. However, mid-process of construction of the home, I had to stop Stolfin to ward off some of the local predators that might try and eat our colonists. With the looming threat of wild animals eating our corpses now gone, we were able to begin construction of our home. With Stolfin finish up the walls and putting up the ceiling to the building, I was able to begin the construction of a stove that we would use to cook our future meals. So as Stolfin constructed the stove, I plotted down our area to use to grow our future crops and feed our humble workers. And as the sun set, our house was coming to its early stages and I placed down the beds so our colonists could sleep. Just by looking at all the great progress we've already made, I know that this great commune, we're gonna go so far. Before we all went off to bed, I made sure to solidify Stolfin's position as leader in the commune, appointing him to General Secretary. Rest well, my good workers. You're much ahead of you. As the sun rose on the next day, I had my workers up and early, working hard, bringing the commune together, building the next room to our great commune. Only on our second day here, we already had raiders from some filthy capitalist faction looking to steal our plunder. I quickly got to work, commanding Shen and Stolfin to quickly open arms and run over to the raiders to ambush them. I misjudged the speed at which both colonists would be able to move towards the raiders though, and Shen reached there, firing on his own with his rather poor shooting skills. I had to have Stolfin quickly come up behind and aid Shen because he couldn't hit a shot worth his life. Though luckily for Shen and Stolfin, most of the raiders were melee based except for one which had a gun, which was our main target. As the raiders fell back, we pushed back in towards them, which prompted them to chase us again, and we quickly made a tactical retreat backwards. After Stolfin had nearly dodged one of the Molotovs thrown by one of the raiders, he was able to take out the raider, but thinning down their numbers. Though angered by this, the raider with the gun came close to shooting Stolfin with their pistol shotgun feint, though quickly things turned dire when Stolfin had been hit. The melee raider was rapidly gaining on Stolfin as Stolfin tried to flee, but it was no use. Stolfin took several severe blows from the melee raider, being able to just nearly survive as Shen makes a miracle shot and actually hits the raider. Though this miracle hit from Shen comes at the expense of him getting hit by the shotgunner just behind him. The chase continues until Chen surprisingly makes the final blow on the melee raider, causing the shotgunner to flee. In pursuit of revenge for the damage caused to our colonists, I ordered Shen and Stolfin to begin chasing down the shotgunner, hoping to kill them, though unfortunately they made it all alive. However, the victory was short-lived, as in the distance we heard the echo of gunshots across the landscape. Apparently, there had been a raider that we missed, and he was now terrorizing one of the visitors who had passed by our area during the raid. I had to quickly wake up Shen and Stolfin from their sleep and to deal with the raider as he quickly approached our settlement. As Stolfin walked into position, he immediately began opening fire on the raider out in the fields as Shen still stumbled his way out of the house. However, though, in the midst of battle, Abba, who was our melee colonist, decided it was a great idea to walk out into the gunfight currently ongoing and had to quickly rush her inside to avoid her being shot. After that though, the battle did not last long. A good shot was made on the pig man, and he immediately went down. As Shen and Stolfen lied down to recover from their wounds, I had Ada attend to their wounds to hasten the healing process. The next morning, not much happened, as both Shen and Stolfen were just lying down trying to recover from their wounds. As being injured and all, they're pretty useless. Though I was able to get them to get out of bed for just a little bit to do some work, so that way we can make a little bit of progress today before the next raid eventually came. With Shen and Stolfen being as frail as they are right now, Ada had to take a much bigger role in the commune and began taking up some of their jobs. And then just as things were slightly starting to get better,
Are you serious right now, bro?
immediately the raiders began rushing towards our commune. We had very little time to prepare, so I immediately had to wake up our colonists. From a quick glance at the raiders, it appeared every single one of them had a weapon, so we would have to have every single colonist, including Ada, on board this raid to be able to stop them. My plan was for Ada to hide behind some rocks and hopefully they wouldn't target her and instead focus on the people shooting on them, and she'd be able to appear from behind them and stab them with her plasteel knife. Soon the raiders came rushing at us from out of the ruins of an old ancient building. Stolfen, with his superior ranged weapon, was able to see them first and immediately began opening fire upon the incoming raiders. The intense gunfight began as Ada hid behind the rocks unnoticed as Stolfen and Shen continued their gunfire upon the raiders. Soon Ada was commanded to rush to her nearest raider and stab them with her plasteel knife and immediately retreat back into the rocks, and so she began running forth. However, unfortunately, as Ada approached the raider, Shen had been knocked down, causing some of the raiders to lose focus on one of the targets and began focusing on Ada. Despite this, Ada made quick work of the raider, though unfortunately in her retreat back to her rock she would take fatal blows and immediately die. Stolfen, now the last man standing, was firing upon the raiders, each bullet with an ounce of hope that maybe, just maybe it'll be the one to kill them. Shen bled out on the ground, slowly losing life in his eyes as Stolfen had to continue fighting. The raiders persisted with their continuous gunfire, with the lust of blood visible in their eyes. Each shot missed by Stolfen was one that could have been spent saving Shen's life, but instead Stolfen struggled to even hit a single shot against the raiders. Fate was fading as Stolfen continued to miss shot after shot after shot, each one as a shot of shame, one that could have been spent saving Shen's life that day. In a moment of desperation, realizing that Shen's life was on his hands, Stolfen quickly moved in to try and tend to his wounds. However, Shen's life was quickly fading and Stolfen simply was not quick enough to be able to tend to his wounds in time, so Stolfen had to regrettably leave behind Shen. Stolfen, though, would not be victorious, and he'd be eventually shot and knocked down to the ground. The raiders would begin laughing. Though upon Stolfen's collapse, a mysterious man in black approached the area, and he began rapidly approaching to save Stolfen from being kidnapped from the raiders who were now leaving and cackling. One of the raiders grabbed Stolfen and began running away with him while the other lit the commune ablaze. The man in black, that was much faster than the raider kidnapping Stolfen, was able to catch up and begin opening fire to save Stolfen's life from the vicious kidnapper. Thanks to the actions of this mysterious man in black, Stolfen's life was saved and the commune's leader would continue on. The next morning, Stolfen would be in bed with the man in black tending to his wounds. This stranger had saved the life of the General Secretary himself. Stolfen owed everything to this man, even though he had no idea who he was yet. This didn't matter though, as Stolfen and the man in black had plenty of time to get to know each other.